how do we in 16 months do a good job of planning for the closure of a plant that we should have been planning for the last 40 years?
Do you think this effectively really shuts the door on any hope that Entergy had of having a positive vote in the legislature to extend their license?
Well, as I guess I've expressed before, I think that door was closed before this problem.
So you don't see any possibility that this could turn out well for them in 2011 in terms of extending their license?
No. But we're going to have a package that isn't quite ready for prime time, but we'll do the best we can to deal with this reality. And as soon as we have the details, we'll get them to you.
Would that include any short-term extension of its operating license for maybe 5 to 7 or maybe even 10 years?
No.
In order to keep it running past,
absolutely,
to make those challenges?
IBM testified yesterday before the Senate Economic Committee, and they sort of laid it out that they believe there's $25 million more in energy expenses for them. And they said if they can't get a competitive rate, they're out of here. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, let me say I read the testimony, and that is not what I read them saying. What I read Janet saying in her statement, as I read it, was they need to be competitive, and if they're not, the statement I read was, we're out of here, meaning we're out of business, not that we're moving somewhere else. So I just want to be clear, that's how I read the statement. In March of 2012, the current tax of Vermont Yankee is a generating tax. That goes away. We need to quickly have the discussion about what is a fair price to pay Vermonters to store high-level nuclear waste in our state. Now, if you came in and proposed that we store high-level nuclear waste in Vermont, I think it would be a tough challenge to find a site to take it. But apparently we're getting stuck with the high-level waste. That is the breaking of a promise that was made when the plant was built. Remember, the federal government was going to take it all away. So what is a fair price to be paid to store high-level nuclear waste in Vermont, and who's going to pay that? So we've got to deal with that piece. Third,
We're moving Catamount into VHAC. Does that send a signal that experiment really didn't work?
well, you know, I think we have to be fair to Catamount and to state government, to the folks who wrote that plan. You know, I wasn't here. It worked in the respect that if you're on Catamount, you have a beautiful benefits package. You pay very little to have that benefits package, and there isn't a Vermonter that wouldn't like to have the same plan. The failure of Catamount is no more significant than the failure of every single healthcare reform effort, every single healthcare plan that's been passed by any state legislature and any federal plan in the country, which is that no one has figured out how to contain costs. So our challenge in Vermont, it's an ambitious one, is to pass the first system in America that contains cost without reducing healthcare quality. And I'm convinced we can do it. So to say Catamount, is it a failure? Well, sure, it's a failure in containing cost. It's a promise that can't be kept unless taxpayers find endless money somewhere that we don't think they're going to find it. We're going to try and fix it. And that's about cost containment. It isn't about access. Catamount was about access, and that was a mistake.
There's a bill to allow for early educators to unionize. Are you back in that?
You know, I support the effort to bring them to the table. They have, for years, received inadequate pay for extraordinary important work. So the answer is yes, I support their effort to come to the table.
Can you sign that, baby?
Well, let me see what's in it first, but I definitely support the concept.
You know, a number of times you've talked about, and you did it in your budget speech, you talked about, I will oppose any broad-based tax increases. Very clear on broad-based tax increases. As you look at the non-broad-based tax increases, are there some opportunities there to raise revenue to offset some of the difficult budget cuts that you proposed?
Not that I've seen.
Then I'm just wondering, I'm curious why you use the phrase broad-based taxes. Why don't you just say all taxes, any kind, off the table?
Oh, I thought I did.
So your use of broad-based is...
What I mean by broad-based taxes is, listen, you know, one has to choose their words carefully as governor, more carefully than I've been used to. So I'm going to try my best. When we talk about a tax or a assessment on nuclear storage in Vermont, we got to get that done. When we talk about the kind of assessments that I propose to draw down federal dollars, you know, we got to get that done too, because otherwise we have to make more draconian cuts to the people that need us. So, you know, I'm a little careful to choose your words. I'm choosing mine for a reason. There are going to be small areas where we're going to find revenue opportunities, as I proposed in my budget. But let me be clear. Vermont's biggest problem is not that our income taxes are not high enough. They're too high. Our problem is not that our sales tax isn't high enough. It's too high. Our problem isn't that the rooms and meals tax isn't high enough. It's too high. I don't know what else I can say.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is that some lawmakers are looking at soda tax, candy tax, as a way to help offset, you know, the 5% cut in mental health programs that you propose. So I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of is, are you open to the possibility of other splinter taxes like that to be imposed in order to offset some of the most difficult cuts?
No,
Why not?
because Vermonters are paying enough taxes. Our job is to bring Vermont's spending in line with the ability of taxpayers to pay the bill.